Hey everybody, this is Silverspook, and this is the Silverspook video on Fallout, the TV show. And this is going to be the Silverspook review of the show. Short TLDR, 6 radioactive thumbs up out of 5. Right away in your T60 power armor, pawning your teeth off for a fistful of Nuka caps. Mr. Handy organ legging for stoner raiders, jet addicted Hollywood cowboys turned into ghouls. Fallout on Prime is a megaton of gonzo apocalypse goodness. So that's the short review in case you don't want to watch the whole thing. I do recommend the show. Obviously, it's a very good show. I am obviously a fan of the series, the game series as well. I've played many of the games, not every single one of them, but I have a penchant. I have a special place in my heart for 1 and 2, the original 1990s Fallout video games. Those are actually my favorite, I think. I mean, all of the Fallouts are really great, but I make. Full disclosure, I do make retro 90s style computer games, that may or may not require, frequent insertion of 3.5 floppy disks. So I may be slightly biased towards the 90s games because of Neofeud is my game that it's very much actually in line with Fallout. And the more I think about it, it's like, oh yes, actually the vibe, the general thrust, the attitude, the style of humor, and the approach in Neofeud is actually very similar to Fallout, which is to say, a simultaneously very gritty, very dystopian, dark, biting satire and homage, but then a lot of comedy overlaying a lot of comedy overlaying an extremely dark world. It's like it's definitely like a kind of gallows humor or gonzo humor, very weird as well, surreal. I was actually watching an interview with Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine was one of the original makers of Fallout. He's like the makers of the original Fallout at Interplay in the 1990s. And he said, like, while he was at the premiere for the Fallout TV show in Hollywood, he said that he was in his hotel, and there was this cleaner robot, like some kind of more advanced, more evolved form of a Roomba that was, kind of like the robot on screen right now, Mr. Handy, the three-eyed 1950s housewife assistant extraordinaire, Mr. Handy. And there was a robot in Tim Kaine's hotel while he was at the Fallout premiere, and he said it was kind of creeping him out because it kept passing by and like, this I forget the exact details, but it was like there's a lot of coming by, passing by, and doing like kind of creepy things, like making these strange sounds, returning to his specifically his door apparently. And after the premiere, like some of the other people that were at the premiere, like the actors and the I forgot who it was, the director, the Bethesda people, the Amazon Prime people. Somebody mentioned that, like, oh yeah, we were staying in that same hotel on another floor. And that same robot, the robot had like a name tag, and that same robot came to our hotel as well, to our room, and it creeped us out too. And then so anyway, and my point is that Tim Kaine made a joke. Oh well, and then somebody said like, well, we have to, we have to get going, and Tim Kaine was like, well, you shouldn't bother leaving because we're all gonna be killed by the robots soon, And I mean, my point is that he made like a really dark joke. But and then not everybody got that, Not everybody got it, and not everybody laughed. But but that's kind of that's kind of like the reactions to Fallout. I think like it seems to be pretty unanimous. I mean, it's a very good show. It's very well acted. It's very well written. It's very smart. It's funny. It's provocative. It's amazingly well designed. The attention to detail is just like just off the charts. Even Tim Kaine said he was like, "What?" This is not a review of Tim Kaine's review, but I'm just using this as an example because this is something that I also feel like when I was watching the show as a fan of the series, I'm just constantly looking at all of these little details, these little objects, signpostings, they're not. It's not really references to the game. It is the game. Watching the show, it's almost like you're inside a Fallout game. I'm gonna say, oh my god, there's the bottle caps, there's the iguana on the stick. You're walking through it. It feels like walking through Junktown. Like obviously, it doesn't feel like the 1990s. It doesn't look exactly like the 1990s games, obviously, because it's not in 640 by 480 resolution, pixelated, in an isometric top-down view. It's a 3D. You're in a 3D world like the Fallout 3, 4, New Vegas, Fallout 76, 3-dimensional where you're kind of walking through the world, but it feels like you're in the Fallout universe. It's like really pretty. I haven't really had that experience watching a show made from a video game in some time, if ever. Let's see. Also, what's up, Victor? Yeah. So it's definitely like a very unique experience. I think a lot of people, the showrunners, have talked about, they wanted something that would be, they wanted to be faithful to the very beloved, as is frequently mentioned and is correct. It is one of the most, beloved game series of all time, video games. It is, and there's been many made, and there's been many hours. You can go look at the Steam statistics, I'm sure, and I'm sure it will draw a very high rank if you clock all the Steam hours. There's a lot of unplayed Steam games, but the Fallout series probably has the least amount of games left to compost and bit rot in the annals of Steam users' libraries. I feel like Fallout is a very well played game. Anyways, so Fallout is very popular, so they had to meet a lot of expectations for fans of the game series. Obviously, the stakes were very high. It's basically at the similar to the Blade Runner 2049 stakes. You have to rebuild the Sistine Chapel. You have to hit this exactly, or the many people could have been deeply let down and deeply upset, and I'm sure there are people that are not going to be happy with everything. But as far as I'm concerned, like it nails, the Fallout TV show nails what they needed to nail, and they went. I feel like they almost not overboard, but there's just so much detail. There's just so much detail. I know I said that 3 times, but even Tim Kaine was saying he was watching the show at the premiere, the few episodes at the premiere, and he said he forgot he was just, there's a scene when they go to Philly, this town in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, and they're in this it's like an antique shop. It's like a general store that's got all of these, just an assortment of all kinds of paraphernalia, and Tim Kaine was just looking at every single thing, and then and then was listening to some of the dialogue, and he's like, what the heck are people even saying? And that was my feeling too. I was looking at the world, and I'm trying to catch all, oh, there's the caps, oh, there's the Pip Boy, there's the there's the there's the Rataway in your T60 power armor that you got. It's like a Rataway that's going into the character's body to remove the radiation. There. I have to, if I don't know if I have even time to get through it all, but I could go back and like freeze frame. You could actually probably freeze frame any given, screen grab. You could pause the Fallout TV show and at any given second in its 5-6 hour total runtime of its 8 episodes, and you could probably like run through and go like, oh my god, this and this and this and this. It's just like everything is. It's like it must have took an amazing, just like gargantuan amount of a lot of human artists and technicians' labor to put that thing together. Yeah, that's probably one of the most striking. That's just from like from a longtime Fallout fan perspective. Like that part is just like that's a whole thing in itself. But it's simply recreating simply recreating the retro 50s vacuum cleaner arm robots with the 3 eyes, the somewhat stormtrooper crossed with a medieval knight looking power armor suits, recreating the look of the ghouls. That was an amazing job as well. Doing the effects makeup for the half rotted 200-year-old irradiated mutant ghouls. Simply recreating those. That's not enough to really make it a Fallout piece of media, though, right? Because the thing that's great, but I think the thing that really makes Fallout, well, one of the central things is the vibe, as people will say, or the sensibility, which is it's hard to really pinpoint, but it has a lot to do with taking the 50s and mid 20th century Americana, the Leave It to Beaver era, this kind of post World War II exuberance that was also kind of overridden with the dread of nuclear war, the Cold War, trying to make yourself be happy, make yourself, you have to live the perfect American life now because the world almost completely ended in World War II. So this is kind of like kind of manic hysteria, and also kind of like bipolar, dread, duck and cover because the nukes could fall at any second. But also we have to be happy and live the best life. And also everyone just 100 million people plus just died in this horrific, catastrophic world war. And we're still fighting wars, but also, and the military industrial complex is beginning, but also we're having the best time ever. It's just like the Fallout. It's like this kind of like fake smile, fake smile in a pastel blue American suburb while bombs are going off somewhere far in the background. That's like the vibe, right? It's like apocalyptic dread, horrible suffering happening somewhere, but we're kind of acting like things are fine and hunky-dory, and things are kind of hunky-dory if you live in a little bubble, right? Like if you grew up in a well-to-do upper middle class suburb in America in the 1950s, as some of the boomer generation did, things could be relatively nice in your little vault, right? The vault is almost like a metaphor for the privileged strata and subsections of the United States, right? The only country that wasn't really devastated and destroyed by World War II and had 50% of the world's economy, right? So it's kind of like there was a luxury just being American in that time, but there's also kind of a terror, like what if the war comes to us, right? And like I feel like maybe some of the things that we have, maybe it's kind of this like eerie. There's like an eeriness, right, to everything, where it's like maybe some of the things that we have are put there are off on the backs of a lot of bad things and suffering. Like, maybe the surface dwellers have it really bad so we can have it really good, and that's a part of the Fallout TV show as well. That's part of the Fallout, I feel that's part of the Fallout universe is kind of like drawing attention to that. Some of it's just straight up 50s nostalgia. Like, you've got the ink spots, I'm not going to sing it because I don't want to get the YouTube content taken down for copyright infringement, but I don't want to set the world on fire. Maybe the music, the beginning of every Fallout show and every Fallout game is, well, number one, they missed Ron Perlman, so they're going to bring Ron Perlman into the TV show at some point. War never changes, right? That's like that. But at the very opening of the Fallout, it's like a 50s, leave it. It's well, it's actually a 1940s recorder, but it's like a retro 1950s, sunny musical number, right? A lot of them by the ink spots, right? And then it's over coming out of a TV show showing, a toaster in your a robot helper in your future. Look at this amazing car. Look at our great American, our great American life we're living. American troops are out there protecting you, right? And they're actually annexing Canada and shooting innocent people in the street. But they're like, but it's like, things are going great for us, everybody. And then the camera pans out, and then it's the entire, Los Angeles or some huge city is just, was nuked, and there's just a radioactive wasteland there, right? And that's like the beginning of the Fallout with the music in the background. Like that encapsulates the vibe very well. So anyways, and it's unique. Like there's Mad Max. There's a lot of post-apocalypses. There's Mad Max. There's I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. There's many stories. That's A Boy and His Dog. I know all of them because I reference them constantly, and I make sci-fi dystopias, so I better know them like the back of my six-fingered hand. And so, but Fallout is unique in the way that it merges the nostalgia, and it has a unique world setup, which is actually like it's not actually. Some people think it's the 1950s, like shortly after it's a retro future, or it's like shortly after the 1950s, or something that came out of that. But it's actually like it's an alternate. It's like a splinter reality that came out of. It's based on the 1950s, but it's actually, the U.S. and China go to war. I think I talked about this in a previous video. The U.S. and China go to war over resources in the 2070s, right? So it's actually like way in the future. The U.S. annexes Canada, China attacks Alaska, nuclear and biological warfare takes off, and then the whole Earth is basically destroyed. People go into the vaults, and then they emerge hundreds of years later in the first Fallout, right? So it's actually taking place like it's taking place 200 years. It's actually like almost 300 years in the future, right? And this actually comes up in the show where the main one of the three main characters, Lucy the Vault Dweller, she's in the blue shirt there, and Lucy says to Maximus, the Brotherhood of Steel squire, aspiring to be a knight, in that very impressive, very powerful T60 power armor, and Lucy asks Maximus, hey, because she's a vault dweller and she's very naive and ignorant of the world, right? as somebody who was raised in a bubble in a privileged North America would be, speaking, and that's one metaphor, one metaphorical analogy and allegory you can draw. That's one I'm drawing right now, but that's not what the whole show is about. But anyways, so she being naive asked him like, hey, so I don't know that much about the world. I know about the 300 years of American history. So number one, right, that actually tells you, right, because it's 1776 to 2070 something, right? So that 300, because America, as of now, America hasn't existed. I mean, in what most people would deem the formal establishment of the United States of America. America hasn't existed for 300 years. So, right, there's 300 years of America. She's like, I know the first 300 years of the United States: the Civil War, World War One, World War Two, Vietnam War. The 2020s, all the way up to the 2070s. But then the United States ends in the Fallout universe, right? It branches out from reality somewhere, or it's an alternate reality that goes out from the at least from the 50s, right? And then it gets to the 2070s, and the United States ends and the world ends, right? And then from the 2070s to, I think it's like 2270 or somewhere around there. So that's why she says, like, I don't know the last 200 years of history, right? Because since that point, there's been like another, there's been almost an entire, from America's inception to the present, right? That almost that much time has passed. By the time Fallout 1 starts, right? So it's actually like way in the future. But it has like all these elements. I mean, that's why it's it's not fantasy, but it's like it's not fantasy, but it is like it is a surreal. I mean, I would, it's like Gonzo has a lot of different meanings. It often just means like very bizarre, awkward, weird senses of humor. Hunter S. Thompson was known for writing that style. I mean, it's definitely in that style. A lot of it's very like, it's not just weird for weird's sake. It's like weird because it's drawing the contradictions and nonsensicalness and just, it is drawing attention to the weirdness and messed upness of the world generally, humanity, but obviously coming from the United States specifically, and the U.S. and Western culture and history, which is just weird. And like that whole time, not just weird, it's weird, and it's deeply effed up. I think one of the cast members in an interview, I think it was Walter Goggins, said, What can you say about the Fallout world? Well, it's I'm trying not to say it because I don't want to get the algorithm. I don't want to anger the algorithm gods. I don't want them to remove my internal organs from my channel views. Walter Goggins says, like, the world is just effed up. It is. I mean, it is because the real one is, and certainly the real one from the vantage point of inside of, the United States, it is. And it doesn't make sense. I mean, the thing is actually, I would argue, coming from outside, it makes things make sense. But when you're inside the vault, right, you're kind of the bewilderment of the vault dweller. It's like, well, we were all taught to, share and build a great future where we have freedom and equality and democracy, and we're all happy contributors to a peaceful, prosperous American society. And then everybody's like shooting each other and like biting each other's fingers off. People are like literally cannibals everywhere, lying and cheating all the time, stealing everything. Everyone's radioactive. People like are like telling the Vault Dweller to go screw themselves. Like that's one of the best scenes is like when the Vault Dweller shows up into a local town and it gets get told to F off, like, what Surface Dwellers think of the Vault? F the Vault. That's like that scene is very good. And you can feel like the disconnect between the people that have had to live in the real world versus the people living in this underground fantasy land. So anyways, I'm gonna try to keep this short because I actually have another interview discussion later on with another Fallout fan. You'll find out who our guest will be later on. So let's try to get through this. So, but in terms of the reviews, in terms of like what I thought about the show, and kind of get back to that. Um, yeah. So it's from a perspective of a fan of the game. There's so much to love about it. In terms of capturing, like you get to see the Mr. Handy. You get let me get some other images up here. You get to see your Mr. Handy. You get to see your ghoul. You get to see the power armor. You get to see the vault dweller doing the vault stuff. Oh man, there's one of the scenes that I just think about. Maximus, the knight that, or the want to be knight. He was in the Brotherhood of Steel. This kind of the like medieval knight culture. There are priests, there are clerics who carry forward the knowledge of technology and perpetuate. Their mission is to capture and use the technology, the most advanced pre-war technology, to then obtain more pre-war technology, and then to stop anyone else from having the technology. It is kind of like, it doesn't make any sense, right? But that's kind of the thing. Like that's again, right? Not making sense and being kind of wacky. Like, what the heck are you even doing, right? That's American culture, though. Like that more largely Western culture, but certainly that's like why do you take a escalator to get to the stairmaster, right? Why do you sanction countries that ends up cutting off all of your supplies and shooting yourself in the foot? It doesn't make any sense, right? Like, or Joe Biden just think about Joe Biden this year. Like, why? So Joe Biden, how about this attack on Yemen? So you're asking me, are the attacks on Yemen working? Are the bombings on Yemen working? No. Will they continue? Yes. Right? That doesn't make any sense. So like, but and so that's why Fallout makes Americans and people that have been raised in the United States orbit. It makes people who have been raised under the iron domes of America's vault. The people that have been raised under the fake blue Truman Show skies of fake Nebraska cornfields and fake smiles, right? Like a McDonald's grin. The people that have been raised with McDonald's and Gap clothes while turning on the TV and watching Kosovo, Iraq, or Vietnam get blown up, right? And going, what? Something's not quite right here. It makes everybody feel seen. It's like, yes, this SHIT is bananas. Like, what the hell are we doing, right? It actually feels like that in a way that like. And it requires comedy, like, because there's a lot of post-apocalypses, but a lot of them are like too serious. I mean, it's fine to do a serious show, and I like serious stuff too, but it's like the actual experience of living in a 20th and 21st century in the West, and particularly in under the U.S. Right? It is like you cannot but laugh at it. You cannot be simultaneously horrified but then also cracking up at it, because it's ridiculous. Okay. So anyways, but in Fallout, back to the point though. Yeah. So like, you've got the power armor. I mean, and that's one of the ridiculous things. So you've got these guys that are in these huge power armor suits, and actually I think interestingly as Jonathan Nolan. I just realized this. They're actually the director of the producer, showrunner of the Fallout TV show. Jonathan Nolan is actually Christopher Nolan's brother, and the Ghoul star, brought up recently that Jonathan Nolan. Well, he's actually he has an American accent. It's actually his. I think they're British American. But I think Christopher he still has a very strong British accent, but not so much for Jonathan. Jonathan also did Westworld, right? Which I like Westworld a lot. It was really good. Westworld and Fallout have a lot of overlays. But Jonathan said, like, the one thing I've never done before that I had to learn how to do was comedy, right? And in the Fallout TV show, and I think he does a very good job. And a part of that is they have really good comedic actors. Oh, also Dallas Goldtooth shows up in Fallout as well. So we also have some indigenous, some of our favorite reservation dogs, indigenous relative / actor / comedian show up, and that really helps. Matt Berry plays Mr. Handy the robot. So I mean, they have really good comedic actors. I mean, that's what we do in the shadows, the IT crowd. Matt Berry's been all over the place recently. So they have like really strong comedic actors that really helps to carry the show a lot. I mean, it's not just comedy, but that like it's got to be in there. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, it's not a Fallout universe. Okay. Anyways, but back to Maximus though. So and one of the comedic elements was where there's a scene where the Brotherhood of Steel, I mean, just to show one of those how it's extremely serious and dark and like horrific, but also funny. So like in the Brotherhood of Steel, who are they're like this, they're like knights, medieval knights / Templar / they're an order, right? And they're like kind of like I mean, I guess it's not never been done before, because obviously the Jedi Knights and the Mandalorians have like medieval characteristics in a sci-fi setting. But actually the armor of the power suit, it looks, it's the Mandalorian is obviously a knight, European medieval knight inspired suit, right? And they have blacksmiths, and they have very strict rules, right? And a process of getting initiated, and then they're like in the Fallout Brotherhood also they have squires, right? They have initiates, they have a process of tutelage, and then learning, and then also getting the crap beat out of you. Unfortunately, you're hazing, and it's a deeply it's like a fusion between the U.S. military culture and the Western military culture, medieval knights, elements of like the religious orders. Like there's actual like Catholic priests waving plumes of smoke of incense, as they're walking around at a initiation, or like a knighthood ceremony, right? And then it also has obviously it's a post-apocalyptic universe, so it kind of like the Brotherhood of Steel is it has like very specific referent points. The young, like the place where they are training in the Fallout TV show, it's basically a military base. It looks like a U.S. military base. It's like I don't know if I can find a good picture of that. Yeah. Well, here's the monk. Here's the incense bearer priest with all of the knights. And it's in this very flat with the Quonsets. It looks like a U.S. military base. Ask me how I know. I'm in the place with the highest concentration of military bases, U.S. military bases in the so-called United States. But anyways, so the Fallout Brother of Steel characters, one of the things that's the dark part is you have like a lot of that military culture. There's an extreme toxic military culture. Let's try to be diplomatic about it. It's super hyper machismo. They're like, everyone is all of the young new recruits, potential the young they're boys, and then there are, interestingly, non-binary people. So they actually, the Brotherhood of Steel leadership actually still uses correct pronouns. They're very extremely toxic culture, very unnecessarily violent, abusive culture, but then also like there is a day that they, and the leadership, the old 70-year-old man leadership, like, use the correct pronouns. It's actually interesting. I was like waiting for some explosion to happen from the right wing spheres about that. DEI people are going to come for it. But anyways, it's not like super in your face, so it might have glazed past some people. But anyway, long story short, there is a non-binary, the Brotherhood of Steel. Now the Brotherhood of Steel, according to the lore, right? In the Brotherhood of Steel in Fallout 1, you can they have women brothers, they have women knights, they have male knights, they have knights of all genders in their first Fallout, right? So that's like actually canon. In fact, that's one of the things when you enter the Brotherhood of Steel, right? When you enter the Brotherhood of Steel in the game, you actually meet a no, actually, this is a female knight right there. So you actually meet one of the Brotherhood of Steel's female knights early on, and if you go in as a woman, you can have a conversation. So Fallout 1 passes the Bechdel test. Well, I mean, if you play as a female character, you can have two women discussing with each other. Hey, why are we all called brothers? And the lady knight's like, well, I don't know exactly. I didn't make these rules. Some of the post-apocalyptic survivors that initiated this secret technology hoarding Gatling gun equipped society, they came up with the Brotherhood of Steel. I mean, I suppose that the Brotherhood and Sisterhood of Steel was too long. And that's like some of the comedy inside of the game itself. But anyways, so one thing that's interesting is that they do have multiple genders of people in the Brotherhood of Steel, and they also have like non-binary people in the Brotherhood of Steel in the TV show. So that's actually canon to the game. And then also, but at the same time, like everyone, all of the young recruits are beating. It's extremely violent, right? They're like bullying and beating up in the Brotherhood. They're like look the other way. They just like beating up the smallest in the group, and just kind of like letting that fly. I went to school I went to grade in high school in the U.S. in the 80s and the 90s. It was horrible. I was bullied my entire school. K to 12 was just nonstop bullying. For my looks, I was like bigger than other kids, and so it's like this is part of U.S. culture is massive, toxic, bigoted, bigoted schoolyard abuse, letting it rip, kind of like certain plagues. Just letting it go and just letting whatever happens, and so the young people that are being kind of like just like one Maximus was being beat up at the beginning of the show, and then another kid they find that another new kid comes in, right, and they're like kicking him in the face like, you stupid, you nasty little whatever, they're calling him names, and then a new younger kid comes in, and then they figure out a way to point the finger at this other kid and go, yeah, we should bully him, and then they beat up the other kid, right? And Maximus has one of his older, one of the older initiates, like Maximus at one point ends up like, getting outranking him, let's just say, so I don't spoil this plot too much. And so and then when he outranks him, right? He suddenly he's able to use, it's kind of like a symbol, right? It's just like using, if you having the power, I mean, whether that's like having the schoolyard politics game being one, right? Having more power so you can beat up on smaller people, the high school cliques, racist bullying, using the R slur, the, homophobia, all that kind of stuff. And then just like, attacking uncool people for whatever reason for your own personal benefit, right? It's kind of like that's a training ground that makes an unequal, bully-filled, toxic adult world, right? It's really in the school, in the schoolyard politics, and it's kind of like, but then but then you see how that kind of like translates into uh if the Brotherhood of Steel are kind of also a metaphor for um military violence, police violence, and general economic violence, like you're like in the workplace with your boss, and the cool kids being turning into Mr. Varsity Jacket, high school kids, or the unbullied kids, generally descending from the wealthiest, most powerful people in the society, growing up to be the the prom king, star quarterback, and then they graduate. They don't study very much, and then they become the corner office guy who bullies everyone in the office, takes all their wages, and then they become presidents, senators, military commanders, media personalities, religious figures, right? And then they move way up in the world, and then they bully the entire planet with the military-industrial complex, right? That's kind of like that's visualized by. I mean, I'm like reading extra into this, but I mean, but it's kind of like that's I think that's a point that the TV show is trying to tease out of the Fallout universe. That's not necessarily, you don't necessarily see that in the games. I mean, I didn't. That's not from 1 and 2. This is something they've kind of added in. That it's a positive addition to the show. That is, it's in the vibe. It's in the sensibility of the Fallout universe, and it's very dark, but it's also like biting because it's actually about being a Western American person. It's right. It's a critique of that world, being being the freest, most moral army, the most the aspirational, the American dream, the greatest place in the world, the United States, the greatest country in the world, but full of this really sick, toxic culture that hurts so many children, and makes deep inequality, and is deeply abusive and harmful and not great. And then spreading that to the world through your military, right? Bombing Korea. Anyway, so bombing Korea, bombing Vietnam, and trying to bully the world, right, into being like you, right, is an extension, right? And that is visualized in the post-apocalyptic future in having the armor that can punch anyone, through a wall. Like at one point, Maximus like throws a rock and like destroys a building. You can like fly through the air, stomp. You can like stomp somebody's leg off. You can rip, you can like rip a car in half. You got these giant guns. Your voice actually, it's interesting. This is one thing I really like was all of the knights you see for the most of the. We're about halfway, 5/8 of the way through the series. Most of the knights that you actually see, they have their really deep voice. They're like, yeah, here, clean my metal jock strap. Like a really deep, cool dude, like a 1980s action movie guy voice. You know what I'm saying? Like, clean my jockstrap. I'm really buff and tough and huge, and because you're in that giant armor, that's like you're in an 8-foot tall power armor with a nuclear, micro fusion core that will last for like 100 years, and and you can like literally fly. You can beat anyone up. You're like the ultimate bully, right? You have all the military power, all the technology. All the guns, everything, right, at your disposal, and then you can push it around, right? And that's like Maximus starts like going, yeah, you clean my, once he gets in the power armor, he's like, you clean my jockstrap, you do what I say, you do exactly what I say, and I'm really big and tough, because the armor actually lowers your voice, right? It's actually that like, but when the armor comes off. Inside all those knights, right? Inside all the knights is like a scared little boy, right? The knights are all like 16, 17, 8-year-old, they're kind of, physically does, but they're not very big. They're not 30. They're like 17, 18-year-olds, and they're kind of very scared. They're very unsure of themselves. A lot of them are really they're cowardly, but they're acting tough. They're all like those kids that were either bullying someone else, or then they were getting bullied and then they started bullying someone else, and now they've got the armor and they go around the world, but they're all still scared little cowards, and they go around the world beating people up, taking technology, beating up on their own subordinates, And that is the perfect metaphor for the West. A bunch of scared little cowards in jacked up ultra-violent technology going around the world, right? Going around the world, beating everyone up, trying to take everything, right? While, but you know, they're paper tigers. They're paper tigers in power armor. So you know, and also, you know, on every level, at the macro planetary scale, at the micro, at the personal interpersonal scale, like in the office, you know, the office leader is a incompetent, mediocre, scared little boy, right? Whose daddy told him, you better be mean, you better be a killer and make all your employees, you know, slave away for all this money and bully and gaslight your way to maintain your power and increase your power as much as you possibly can. Increase our, you know, Western capitalist, feudalist, etc., colonial holdings, and never and as long as you exude enough, you know, power in your power suit with your red tie and your Western, your white supremacy, your male supremacy, you know, all, you know, exude all of the unjust accumulated racial, gender, capitalist, colonialist hierarchy. Weaponize all the power you have, your military, the police that you control, threaten it all the time, right? And never admit weakness, that you actually are just a scared little boy who was beaten up by your own daddy, if you weren't, and your classmates, and you're just pretending to be a big tough guy in your power business suit or your power U.S. military goggles, you know, on your U.S. aircraft carrier, you know, just you know, Prosperity Guardian out there in the Red Sea right now. By the way, Iran is speaking of Fallout, you know, World War III is starting already. No, it's you know, Iran is retaliating against the United States big bully Israel. I mean, it's really an appropriate time because you know, it's really the changing tide for the Western trumped up, acting tough power armor of its imperialist, capitalist, you know, white supremacist, Western supremacist, patriarchal society is looking very weak right now. You know, the scared little boys are falling out of the exploding U.S. warships right now. You know, the FBI apparently is the FBI struggles with housing their homeless FBI agents in L.A. and New York City. That's the new one, right? So all the little scared little boys are going to be falling out of their armor soon. Or as we speak, because the United States is begging the poorest Arab country, Yemen. I know this is a little bit of modern politics, but I mean, it's relevant. The U.S., on the global scale, the big power armor U.S. is the big tough U.S. undefeatable military that they said Yemen was about to find out why Americans don't have healthcare, right? And it sent, like, you know, entire armadas of battleships and aircraft carriers and F-35s to the Red Sea. And now America is pleading and begging the poorest Arab country, please, we'll take you off the terrorist list. We'll give you, we'll lift some sanctions on you. We'll stop bombing you. If you just please stop beating us up, right? So in that sense, like, the U.S. is the power armor, big brotherhood of steel bully, punching at the smaller country, a poorer country, much more, you know, that has been bombed and sanctioned and starved and genocided, like Palestine, for a decade and much longer in the colonial history. But now the smaller country is resisting, is saying no, and it's actually militarily winning. So that, and like, I haven't finished the Fallout series, but I feel like that's gonna probably come up. So I don't want to spoil anything, but, you know, I feel like that's going to be an important how they deal with the Brotherhood of Steel is going to be interesting. And how do they resolve that kind of, really not resolve, but what do they do with that, like, super toxic, hyper militarized American, you know, culture that's beating up and smacking down and attacking out of cowardice, out of fear, and out of inability to punch upward, right? So it's a punch down forever, and just hope that actual good and actual courage and actual bravery and actual revolution doesn't punch back up, right? That's failing now. So I wonder how they're gonna resolve that. I don't know. But anyway, long story. I'm like way off the top. I'm way off the Fallout now. But like but I like that dynamic where it's like that the small child can go into a big armor and and then stomp all over everywhere. But that at the end of the day, there's still a small coward inside, and just hoping that they don't get found out. And I think that's a powerful concept, and also it makes it very funny because you'll see like the kid he's all like yeah I'm a badass knight, yes I totally am Knight Titus, yes I'm here to defend and then like he gets his foot like stuck inside of his foot falls through a wooden a boardwalk, or like it gets stuck in a hole and he can't figure out how to get his foot out, and then the ghoul's like, son, you made your first mistake, you didn't read the manual. First thing they teach you at basic training, make sure you read the manual. And then like he cuts like one of his power armor tubes, and then he gets like then he like has to like Rocket Man himself. He like does his Iron Man rocketing up out, and but then he can't control it because his suit is malfunctioning, and he's like zooming all over the sky and like shoots off and like does a air, he does like a sudden nosedive into the middle of the forest. So there's lots of like that kind of like humor in the middle of all of this like kind of like nightmarish world, right? And that's like one of those super horrible, super like poignant and timely and smart statements being made, but also it's simultaneously funny, right? That's really you have to nail all of that simultaneously for you to really, I mean, to my mind, to really nail the Fallout thing. That's what I always liked about it. And I think the show does that in so many different places. Mr. Handy Organ. But yeah, I'm like way off in the Silver Spoon deep discussion bits. I'm not too much on just commenting on the quality of the shows. But I mean, every episode like has a lot to love. The first episode is like 75 minutes. It establishes the world. The Vault Dweller. And I've talked about this. The Vault Dweller in the Fallout TV show. Does a really good job. Was it Ella Purnell? Is that her name is? In her vault, I want to get a picture of that vault. See if I can get one of those. The Vault Dweller. Where's our cornfields? Fallout. Yeah. The Fallout. This is the Fallout video game cornfields. Here it is. Is this the one? Yeah. So Kyle MacLachlan, he was in he's in the original Dune, and he was also in Twin Peaks, and he's been in lots of things recently, right? So he plays one of the he plays the leader of one of the main, the central vault in this TV show, and I couldn't find a picture, but like behind him in this vault, they have a projection of idyllic Nebraska with a cornfield and a blue sky, and there's a fake sun, and the main character Lucy says, at one point in the show, I remember being out in our vault in the cornfields, and I believe that was really the sun warming my skin, every day when I would go out there. And my mom just made it so real, because she believed that she was in 1950s bucolic Nebraska, some kind of pastoral utopia, because of how real the vault was made, and the people's belief in their own project, right, is part of that. Of we're gonna bring the good to America. We're gonna restore America. We're gonna rebuild our prosperous, free, just country and our great democracy. It's like there's a word for it. It's like the great rejuvenation, the great, the rebuilding at a certain time when the conditions are right. We're going to return to the service and we're going to fix it all up and really nice, right? And so it's kind of like the but you can, over there, I don't want to give too much away, but you can, all is not as it seems, right? And if you've played the games, you know that actually the vaults, how much should I say about that? Well, if you played the game, you know that not all the vaults are the same. Each of the vaults, they're ostensibly made by Vault Tech to, house, people in the event of a nuclear apocalypse, right? But actually, number one, they were made for basically just the rich and the powerful to go underground while everything burned. And number two, it's not just a place to survive, right? And the thing is there's a real equivalent, because there are billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg and several other billionaires are building vaults. They're building vaults right now all over Hawaii, by the way. They've been building them all over the place for a long time. Now, of course, like whether they're going to work out very well is another question. That's a really big question mark, and I would argue it's not going to work out very well. But there's also so there's a real world component to like this idea of having a place to survive the apocalypse underground. But also like in Fallout, the purposes of the vaults is not just to survive. They're actually experimental facilities as well. That's horrible, powerful people are using in order to further their own ends, let's say, right? And not necessarily to the benefit of the vault dwellers, right? The people that dwell in the vaults, in fact, right? Well, many of them are the children of the wealthy, and there are certain vaults that are like, they're basically the personal apocalypse, Noah's Arks for, rich people. But there are other vaults that are, less so, right? Not all vaults are not created equal. I mean, some in one of the Fallout vaults, right? There's a vault where everyone is Gary. Every single person is a clone of this dude named Gary, and it is a psychotic vault. And there's some vaults where they design the water, they design the water and the food to run out at a certain amount at a certain date in a certain way, right? Because each vault has its own water creation, has to have its own air creation, has to have its own like food and waste systems, right? And so the people that are behind the curtain, like pulling the strings at the vaults, they like design they do like human society experiments with like, what if we like cause all the food to run out at this time? What if all the air runs out, right? What if we have a society where we like have everybody, grow up reading Plato? Or what if we have a society where everyone is pushed to distrust each other? What if we have all men or all women or one woman and 99 men? Well, let's see what happens. What if we put tons and tons of weapons in one vault and just have weapons everywhere, and then like a shortage of food? Let's just see what happens. So there's all kind of these, so like, and then like later on in the series, later on in the TV show, that aspect of that very dark aspect of Fallout comes out. There's that one character, the scientist. His name is what is his name? Wilzig. That's his name. Yeah. So there's the scientist, Dr. Wilzig. He's right there. Yeah. At one point, you meet this guy, and that guy. Let me get that picture. Yeah, you meet him, and you see him like before the present, and he's working in a science lab. Let's put it that way. He has his dog that he befriends, but it's one of the experimental dogs where they're doing all their very 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 important science that will benefit the future of mankind, right? And it is mankind, like it's the 1950s, and so Mr. Wilzig is Dr. Wilzig is wandering later on in the present, but you see that he knows way more than he lets on. And he knows when he meets Ella, he knows everything. He knows, like, I know, oh yes, Vault 33. You are a meritocracy. Your internals were modeled on, the rural Nebraska. You have very high. You have your water and your food and your air is all sound and well supplied. Yes, you lived in a nice idyllic life. So he actually, and he has never met her, right? But he knows everything about. He knows, like, everything about each vault, like where they come from, exactly what their conditions of life were like, because he's one of the people that was, doing science, like he was one of the people that was using all of the vault dwellers as guinea pigs, which is also a metaphor for America, because the United States doesn't educate its own. I mean, it's not just vault dwellers, right? I mean, again, if we use if the vault dwellers are like metaphors for, the more well-to-do members of American and Western societies, right? I mean, that's a point I bring up frequently. You are not, you are in some senses a lab rat, marketing, which is just psychological operations and disinformation schemes that predate the United States, that go all the way back through Europe, through Christendom, the colonial era, the Crusades, all the way back to Greece and Rome. Like I don't have time for all of that right now, but just suffice to say that, like, disinformation and not being told the truth and being used and being conditioned is universal to Western culture. It is not only a characteristic of vault dwellers, but it's kind of like, again, I'm like using this show kind of like to speak more generally. We're trying to tease out and allude to what the show is, what the show is referring to, whether it's intentional, conscious by the showrunners or not, right? But it is like, it's so like the vault, like being lied to, right, is a constant being upset because you were lied to earlier in your life, is a universal condition of Western people. It is just, it's a given, being content. And part of the American experiment, part of the most, I would argue, possibly most of the American energy, American work by the educated classes, to the extent that they exist, most of Western work is actually involved in conditioning, lying to, and producing, right, these kind of warped gonzo people that are either like ready to go out and punch the whole world for horrible reasons, right? Like bombing and doing genocide in, some global South country, some global majority country, Asia, Africa, Latin America, Vietnam, Iraq, South American death squads. So in order to condition your population to either like be the bean counters for billionaire horrible psychopaths that are building vaults, or to go around the world and beat up people for innocent people, the West has to constantly they need these scientists like Mr. Worldsgig. They need schools, they need universities, they need complicit schools, universities, science, they need media, they need systems, and they need like people like the main character's parents were like some of those misleaders, right? That have to miseducate, they have to condition, they have to lie constantly, lying. And then so much of that work, right, is actually writing New York Times articles, right? Writing patriotic lies into textbooks and then teaching them to kids, right? And that's why the war over woke and DEI, the war over, Marxist, leftist, anti-American education, right, in the schools, that's like, that's like, we got to get, that like liberal and conservative, as I bring up, are like, there's a war over the minds. There's a war over the minds of future Americans and future Westerners generally, but definitely future Americans, right? Over like what they're being taught, right? And most of the anti woke and the those radical leftists is because the United States ruling classes know that if too many of the children don't become little naive conditioned vault dwellers who love their country, are willing to go off and die and kill innocent people abroad for resources in the U.S. military or any Western military, are not ready to go into an office and, pilot drones from a PS4 controller and blow up children in Palestine or Afghanistan, or move credits and dollars in spreadsheets at a Wall Street bank, or write propaganda in a media article or in a university system, or a school system, right? Which that's all the West produces, right? It's bullshit propaganda, weapons, death, destruction, and billionaires, and a bunch of broken bridges and broken, falling apart ships and planes, right? And then mass disease and biowarfare. So to have that horrible system, and obviously now the mask is off, but you need millions of people like that World's Gate. People are able to, self-excise their morality, neurons, and just like rip out their consciences, or just be so terrified of the repercussions that they participate in this horrible experiment, the horrible Western experiment, the failed American experiment, ultimately. And then they also and they need to deal with, because it's very difficult for a highly educated, a globally interconnected, advanced technological society to have really deeply conditioned and programmed, lied to, basically stormtroopers, right? Or like, Brotherhood of Steel, literal stormtrooper suit wearing bulliers, and capitalist, a good cogs stealing everybody's labor value in offices, right? And keeping their head down and grinding out the inequality for a tiny minority of billionaires, and then having scientists that are devoted to making more bioweapons and more horrible weapons of death and destruction, and then government officials that are misleading the population, right? And political and media specialists that all they do is lie to everyone and tell them they're going in the right direction, but while making decisions on behalf of their billionaire, corrupt, horrible, psychopathic owners. That's what the West is distilled human psychopathy, and a sick multi-thousand year failed experiment. The West is a 2,500 year failed vault experiment, of what happens when you put the most horrible life waste people, politics and culture and ideologies in charge, right? That's what it is. And so in that sense, like, that's why most people are involved in, like, having to constantly deal with the people that are discovering they've been lied to. Like, oh my God, you mean the sun isn't real? I mean, most people don't. Most people don't live in an underground, secret 50s America. That's not most people's circumstances. But oh my God, you mean that the United States isn't fighting just wars around the world? Oh my God, you mean we're killing children in Palestine and we're aiding and abetting genocide? Oh my God, you find these things out, right? And then what do you do with that, right? Oh, even before that, oh my God, we're killing so many innocent people in the Iraq War. Oh my God, I signed up for the military to defend freedom and justice and fight our enemies, foreign and domestic. And then I went to Afghanistan, and all I did was kick in houses of innocent children and families. And I didn't meet an enemy of America. I just bullied a bunch of innocent Muslims, and now they hate us more for legitimate reasons. And then they come back to America, and you're all pissed off. And then you have the Iraq War protests. So most of the West, and so then you have the police, and then you have the media, and then you have HR, and then you have all of the politics, and all of the human managers that are paid to suppress and misdirect and miseducate right-wing podcasters, liberal media. The biggest job in the West is to either condition future generations of vault dwellers, just like average Americans, make them as brainwashed and into perfect killers, believing nonsensical things and false things. When they find that out, then you need people to come back and then and deal with
the fallout of the upset, angry ex-military soldier who lost his leg fighting for evil. That is to say, the United States and the billionaire class that it protects. The pissed off climate scientists that are realizing, oh my God, all the parties of all my governments are doing nothing for the actual air and water and birds and trees and species and everything, all life on Earth. And now I'm pissed off, right? That are setting themselves on fire. You got to come back. You got to deal with all those kids that are like listening to, Palestinians, people from Africa on TikTok talk about the horrors of the United States and and racism and colonialism and capitalism. And now they're pissed off because those 15, 16, 17-year-old kids are mad at their previous generations for not doing anything to stop the destruction of the environment, the planet's ecology, stopping racism, the colonialism, and the capitalism that's ruining their world and burning their entire planet, right? So, and so all the money is being spent, right? All of the energy of Western, to the extent that there remains a West and there remains an America, right? To the extent that there remains that American world, right? All of the energy that is being paid from the billionaire capitalist, plutocracy down, is, if you have a gainful job, it is to be, a complicit silent college professor at a university that's supporting genocide in Palestine, and also U.S. empire around the world, despite being quote unquote decolonial. There are several professors that have just been kicked out in the last 6 months, many, just for saying the truth, basic truths, like Palestine is being genocided. So if you are a professor, if you work in a university, if you have a gainful job in finance, insurance, or real estate, you're silent on that. All your job is to liquidate poor young people who can't afford their rents and jack their rents up. If you're a cop, you get paid the big salary to put on your big power armor and beat the shit out of striking workers who are starving, beat the crap out of black people and put them in prison. The prison scrapers that are being built. So that is the United States. It's all world's gigs. It's all world's zigs. It's all liars, like the politicians. There's actually an election in the vault, and it's really funny because when things are grim, right? When things are glum, vote Vault 31. So every time they vote in their vaults, in their democracy, it's always the same people that get put in charge, like 98%. And then somebody says, like, there's a really good line where like one of the vault dwellers' friends says, well, who knows why 98% of people vote for the Vault 31s. It's like, that's like asking, why does 98% of people in this vault prefer Jello to apple pie? Who knows? That's just life, right? But it's kind of like, wait. 98% of people prefer what? Like that seems highly unlikely to be a coincidence, right? But it's not. It's because everyone is conditioned to believe they live in a democracy, to vote for a particular candidate. And even if they vote for that candidate, it doesn't matter, right? Because, all the candidates are put in place by the shadow ruling class of these horrible psychopaths that run the United States and the West, and also the vaults by extension, right? So it's like, so all of that's, all of those elements come together in various episodes, and obviously, like, I mean, Fallout doesn't all that stuff I just said about what the U.S. is and, like, how it operates. That's not necessarily all in the Fallout show, but like the fraudulence of the U.S. democracy and the Western, what liberals would like you to believe is the United States. The gaslighting that you're getting right now, being told the economy is great, life is awesome, vote Joe Biden, because things have never been better. Like, the current moment with when you have millions of people died from COVID, 30 million plus have long COVID, permanently extremely disabled, unable to move and walk in many cases, losing their housing. There's record levels of inequality, prison scrapers being built everywhere, little countries literally falling apart, nothing was done. Nothing was done for the Black Lives Matter. They just, cops have been, police budgets exploding, more people violently, killed and arrested than ever. Every single year, cop cities being built despite mass protests. $100 billion plus being thrown to do genocide. What people are literally falling apart in the U.S. And then you have Biden out there with his thumb up, like, this is the best we've ever been. We're doing amazing, And then, like, obviously the other side is just like, yeah, you should vote for us, And then we'll do basically the same thing, except we'll do it with less pretense, Vote Republican. We'll be nasty and not pretend we're nice. That's basically the difference. And so like that, like, so Fallout kind of captures, I mean, that's also part of that gonzo, unhinged, just like wacky. It's so horrible, but also so nonsensical, and then also funny at the same time. It's like funny. It's like watching the mushroom cloud, blow up, and then like a McDonald's sign goes flying, and like takes out a billionaire's aircraft or something. It's like watching the billionaires take a broken shitty submarine they made themselves and then go down to the bottom of the sea and get themselves crushed by the massive PSI deep near the ocean's floor in an Ocean's Gate submarine, right? So Fallout is like that, and actually, that's less horrible. That's more just like, haha, look at the rich, horrible, nasty cycles that run the United States died. But but it's also funny at the same time. It's not good for them, but it's part of the. But that's part of like that like, what is even happening here? Why is this even happening? I'm confused. Explain this to me, please. Right? Like, it's like, really, like, explain this to me, please, because I don't understand that. That is the number one. Explain this nonsense, horribleness to me, please. I don't understand that. Is the number one most common American feeling, I would argue, right? Just like, and so it's always well captured. Oh, I could go off on this forever, and I'm sure I will probably do that more later today, but I got to go because I have to go and talk to my friend Carl Ja, our good friend from the Silk and Steel podcast, who we'll be talking to later on today. We're going to talk about Fallout because we both are Fallout fans. And we're talking about Hawaii and Asia Pacific and a whole lot of other fun things and geopolitics. And we'll probably bring up the fact that Iran and Israel are now at war, or Iran is just simply attacking Israel as we speak. And what that means. So don't forget to stick around for that later. Well, not stick around. We're going to be done with this stream. But if you would like to support us, you can give us direct support through Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/silverspook. You can also give us ongoing support at the Silverspook Patreon site, patreon.com/Neofeud. Every dollar does go to help us keep on doing our Neofeud 2. Neofeud, which is a gonzo cyberpunk dystopian game. And also doing other work to make the world less apocalyptic, such as restoring our agriculture, our pluricrop native Hawaiian agriculture, and also to work on more videos and more streams and more activism and education, and also, of course, finishing Neofeud 2, a cyberpunk adventure game. Also, don't forget, Made in Asia America, Why Video Games Were Never Really About Us, a book that is being published by Duke University Press, is now out. You can go and get it if you would like to. I was involved. I made the cover art for this, and also I was involved in the production of the content for this book as well. I'm actually Asian and Pacific Islander, and raised under the American Empire, certainly. And I contributed to that book in that vein. And of course, as always, work on this is some of the Neofeud 2 latest work. And so if you would like to get updates on that and also support us, and also get access to the Silverspook Discord and Silverspook University, which is over 1,000 hours of all the content I've ever produced, categorized according to topic, and it combines history, economics, politics, hard and soft sciences, pop culture, art, analysis, and of course, always with the Silverspook edge. Then you can always become a Silverspook Patreon patron, and you get access to
Silver Spook University. And what else? Yes, and also you can get Neofeud at Steam and itch.io for Windows and Mac and Linux. Neofeud is also available. It's on Steam and itch, and you can also, if you have a second, leave a very short review. If you like the game, it does help us get the game discovered in the Steam algorithm. You can also get Neofeud, as I said, on itch. It's on sale here as well, and it's also a game that is maximum revenue comes to us when you pick the game up on itch. You can also get Decolonators, Indigestar, a whole lots of other games, and Woman is a book by Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity. Holly was raised in like the in an idyllic, bucolic, like the Vault Dweller, a corn-filled bucolic town, not in North America. Holly is also, of course, writing these books, and that is also critiquing that culture, like Fallout does. And it's also free, or you can throw some money our way when you pick that up. You can also follow at Silver Games at octodon.social, at Silver Games at mastodon.social. On Mastodon, you can follow at Silver Guy on Twitter. And then also Silver Games, minus the E and Silver for the game stuff. And of course, you can follow Terminus C. Terminus Cyberstar is the account for the cyberpunk RPG, 3D RPG that I'm the content director and lead writer of. Call it colonialism. This is like, that's the kind of humor that I put, the environmental humor / also political satire is like, that's a similarity between Fallout and the Silver Spook worlds and Silver Spook games. And Terminus Cyberstar is one of those. So you can check that out, and also you can check out where you can follow Holly at the Tech Fairy. Holly is, of course, partner and wife here, producer, and more with the Kid Nick's music and variety show. Mama and caregiver for two native Hawaiian children, writer, educator, sapphic queer person, mask wearing MECFS suffering person. So don't forget to do that as well, and also sharing all these really cool pictures. Speaking of non-binary people, there's some inside of this stream. So thanks for representing. And anyways, thanks everybody for watching, and don't forget to go. I do recommend check out the show. It's you don't need to be a Fallout fan. Anyone will like. I think anyone can appreciate this show. I feel, unless you have you have a very poor, or not very poor, unless you take your America too seriously and you don't have a very strong sense of your own kind of weird, wacky country. Other than that, you probably enjoy this show, so do check it out. And thanks to the Patreon patrons for all your continued support, massively appreciated. Until next time, keep your mirror shades powerless, be excellent to each other. Keep your rad count below 5,000, unless you want to grow 2 more thumbs and a mutant hand out of your stomach. Okay.